Hi, Quinn.
I'm really excited to be here and to chat to you about our hopes and dreams for AI, more specifically, your hopes and dreams, and to just let the conversation go where it goes, and let fears come up if they come up, but most importantly, staying with what are we wanting from this thing that we're trying to all understand right now. So, take us away. What are your hopes and dreams for AI?
Okay, so I think there are three things that come to my mind first up. And these are all like big headings, right? Because I think the way that I work is I tend to zoom right out to the big picture. So yeah, there's a philosophical angle, I'm sure. But I think first of all, I think my primary aspiration is to do with ethics. And that's a really murky, unclear concept, right? Because we kind of lean into morals and what does that mean? It's like it's tricky to get a handle on the actual foundations of that concept when we're thinking about AI. But I think if we think about it in terms of education, I want to put learning first, prioritize progress, prioritize achievement, prioritize developing young people to achieve their potential and flourish. And behind all of that is this really important foundation too of safeguarding and policy and regulation. And none of those things they don't sound that exciting. That's not like, oh wow, yes, my hopes and dreams for AI is this really great regulation. Everybody says that. However, I just feel really strongly that it has to come from a basis of security and safety and respect, and that young people are not just data fodder for commercial enterprises looking to make a quick buck out of them. So transparency would just be a beautiful thing. So I think those ethics pieces come up for me first, definitely. After that,
Hold on, before you go on, that's interesting. Let's hold there. What would respect look like? That was a really important moment for me anyway. So I'm curious about that. What would respect look like for children and all of us in education with ethics and AI?
so it's about building into the platforms and tools that we use that have AI accessibility for folks with different learning needs, different disabilities, that kind of thing. It's about making sure that privacy and data is managed really carefully. We have unfortunately arrived in a space in the world where we've almost been trained by the social media age and the attention economy to expect and accept that our digital tools manipulate our feelings and our relationships and our democracy and our brain chemistry and our desires and our needs. Like, we expect that. So the problem I feel is that if we don't create tools that have respect built in for the autonomy of the user, for their own personal agency, we are going to add a layer of manipulation on top of that attention economy stuff that we've already seen in place, which is indiscernible, which is it doesn't respect the person and the user. It's simply another means by which to sell or by which to harvest data, and people aren't people, they're users. So I think putting people first, putting children first, actually means respecting their privacy, respecting their agency, making sure that their data, the information about them, the stuff that's privileged, is protected really carefully, and nobody's making money out of those kids. I think that's crucial.
Beautiful. That was really beautiful. Thank you for that. So going into that second piece for you, ethics is first. What's the
Yeah,
second?
and I think actually this leads on really well, thinking about agency. So I have a bee in my bonnet about this. And this comes from 20 years of working in education, right, where I have seen the edtech industry and the technology industry more widely profit enormously from teachers who have been told what they need.
Mm, mm.
And it hasn't always come from a place of well-researched pedagogical understanding. It's quite often has been watered down commercial product that's not necessarily been even fit for purpose, but quite often there's been a conversation that says, here is a tool, let's see what we can do with it in education, rather than in education, we need things that do this in order to maximize learning. It's been the wrong way around.
Wow.
So my dream for teachers is that they are given the gift of deep understanding of the tools and how to use them, that they are agents, drivers even, of technological change in the education sector, and that they have the power to define the direction of travel for the creation and development of those AI tools, to the point where they can hold technology companies to account and say, no, that's not good enough for us, or what we really need is this. The next step looks like that. That's going to be hugely powerful, and could mark a real change in how we perceive technology as a core part of our learning environment, rather than something that has sort of done to the sector, but instead something that has been co-created by the sector. And that would be incredibly powerful. And if it's not the edtech companies or the bigger technology companies, then it's a number of people who are looking to make lots of money by creating fear and insecurity and panic and worry and FOMO and all of those things. The number of posts I see on social media right now implying that if you're not already on this, you're late to the party, and capitalizing on fear. It's not surprising, it's the world we live in, but I do wish for teachers that they had the power and the understanding and the time to really get to grips with what these tools can do and what direction they can take them in for the benefit of young people.
What is the biggest fear you have if not enough people have a bee in their bonnet like you do?
I think indifference, passivity, and ultimately young people not being served and instead being manipulated, or worse, ignored. I think there won't be a sort of single monolithic state of what happens in this country or globally with these technologies. And I think one of the risks is that there will be tech forward and financially privileged environments in which young people will have amazing opportunities to thrive using great tech. And there'll be other environments where the existing technological gaps will widen even further. And those gaps have existed for a long time, right? Whether it's connectivity, whether it's the actual devices that they have, whether it's the training opportunities, whatever, right? But all of those things will get worse with AI as another lever if we don't use the capacity of AI to flatten the hierarchies and narrow the gaps proactively. But it's going to take some people, some very brave, noisy, irreverent people to say, oh, we're not doing this again. Yeah, I love that you're pointing at me. Yeah, I'm one of those people, proudly. Because it's not easy to buck the trend, right? It's not straightforward, but I feel a huge sense of responsibility. And part of the reason is about, I'm going to just segue straight into my next point, if that's all right with you, Quinn. I'm on a roll. Part of this is about society as a whole, and this generation of kids who are going to grow up and be, kind of adult members of citizens of democracies, where the idea itself of truth, of like journalism is already dying. And there is no longer this deep funnel of what it means to start with gossip and end up with fact. It's gone. Everyone's a journalist. Everyone can publish. Everyone's opinion is somehow often portrayed as fact. But now, if you add AI into the mix, these young people are growing up in a space where truth is just, oh, well, who knows what's real and do we care? And I feel like instead of the outrage we've seen, and you and I have shared enthusiasm for that book, The Outrage Machine, right? Amazing recommendation. Instead of outrage about that, we will see indifference and passivity, where people are just like, oh, well, it is what it is. And that makes me mad. So manipulation should be the enemy. Agency should be the friend.
Mm. And so when we think about our role, like our day-to-day, we're having this conversation. I personally see this as part of the solution, right? Like part of the work we need to do. But how do we amplify the magic of humanity in this next era? Like, what do we need to do, at home with our families? What do we need to do on the streets? What do we need to do as we do our work? Like, what are the things that will keep ourselves at our best?
So I think that there are two things again that instantly come to my mind. The first is what we privilege with our attention. Money itself isn't actually, like we talk about voting with our feet. I don't think that paying for things necessarily is or not paying for things like boycotting stuff. I don't think that's the answer. But I do think what we privilege with our attention and what we amplify as educators, as voices in the sector, is important. And so taking great care where we align ourselves with particular platforms, particular products, particular ways of being, and doing that purposefully with intention, and not being afraid to say, actually, that didn't work out. It wasn't what I hoped. Failing forwards in that sense. Because there is an aspect of this that's experimental. I think we have to go for it. I think we have to be brave and not just sit in the sidelines and wait for a few years to see if things improve or it all becomes clearer. I'm not advocating for that at all, but I suppose what I'm saying is choose wisely, choose carefully, share that journey, explore what it means with intention, with purpose. After that,
after we've done all of that,
and this is the grinding, boring stuff. It's policy. It's policy and it's regulation where we hold our principles about what really matters at the same time as holding understanding of tech. And that is hard because in so many cases, there is a big knowledge gap and a skills gap between the people who write policy and the people who dream big about their aspirational principles and all of that you want to put together for your school, and the people who have the deep understanding of the technology. But those people need to be talking and need to be sharing understanding, because it's going to be crucial that you can hold on tight to those values as you make choices about technology.
Not many people watching this are going to know this reference, but something that just showed up for me is, when we talk about growing pains and how like the pain is the solution.
Yes. Because there is struggle.
Yeah.
And actually, so the piece that I wrote recently about the kind of philosophy aspects, I talk about hype curves and that kind of thing. We are in a really interesting time with a new technology, and this is so predictable, right? It's happened over and over and over again. There's nothing new about the shape of this experience. We have a new idea, it builds, it creates huge amounts of hype and attention, and we're right at the top of that right now. And then there is going to be a massive plummeting descent into the dark valley of innovation. Our job is to navigate that with purpose and with clear eyes, but also to shorten that journey as far as possible by accelerating policy, accelerating regulation, accelerating sharing of good practice, so that we get to that plateau of innovation where everything is calmer and safer and more transparent, and we're through the danger zone faster. And it's in collaboration we'll do it.
Thank you so much for this conversation. What else can I ask you? What else is there for you in this subject matter? Like what do you want to say? What are you curious about? Like what else hasn't been here already?
I think relationships is the other thing I want to talk about. And about privileging relationships. I know you'll like this. It's good. Oh no, we have to talk about relationships. What a disaster. So I have been thinking about relationships and language as kind of the currency of relationships, right? So, and if I'm imagining building blocks, so go with me, and this is clumsy and I'm riffing literally in the moment, but if the lowest sort of common denominator of culture is language, and through language we create relationships, and through relationships we create a culture, whether that's a community, a school, a family, whatever. So if the bottom layer of that, the foundational unit, is language, there've got to be some really important aspects to this around literacy and around authenticity. Because the minute that you have kids, adults, anyone who struggle to communicate with language around their wants and needs and desires, who struggle with discernment, any of those things, critical thinking, and they don't have the language skills, they are automatically disadvantaged or even excluded from this space. The minute that you manipulate language to create synthetic experiences, artificial intimacy, in the way that we see with social media, right? You can create an entire world on TikTok based around needs and wants that you didn't even know you had from how you react to what you see. We can do that now. That exists in the world that we live in today. Imagine then adding layers and layers and layers of linguistic manipulation. And what happens then if you've crumbled the integrity of that linguistic foundation? Relationships are compromised. Things are disingenuous. You don't know what's real anymore. You don't know what actually counts. Who's really there for you? What does it mean? Then what happens to culture? What happens to community? I think the very fabric of the way that we relate to each other as people could be compromised by this technology if we're not super careful.
Yeah, and that integrity piece feels critical at every layer, like coming from like the individual layer to like the top policy ethical layer that you were speaking of at the beginning and then just a few moments ago. That feels like if we have integrity at those two levels, it will bookend and smush the middle, which is really what we need.
Yes, absolutely. And make the middle, untenable ground. And that's what you want, right? So there are always going to be people who try and scam others, people who do crimes and bad stuff. And the internet is a great way of amplifying all of those things, making space for views we find tricky and all of that. And that's fine. We have a world in which our free speech, thank goodness, is allowed. So there are going to be bad folks doing bad things. However, in education, it is our job to make sure that that disingenuousness does not pollute our environment such that all of our messages are compromised.
Amazing. You are an incredible thinker, and I'm so happy and I feel so honored to be able to work with you on this, and I can't wait to see what you do at the conference.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.